Welcome back to the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, live going here for Game 3. After a pretty abysmal result, you'll see it on the screen in just a moment if you're on YouTube. 109-94. Denver wins Game 3. They're up 2-1. Well, for those that are watching for the first time, thank you for everybody that's watching throughout the series as well. If somebody's watching for the first time today or tomorrow when this goes up, introduce yourself and what we're doing here, and let people know how you are doing.
Yeah, my name is Grayson Hill. I've been a frequent guest on the show through its history, and happy to be hopping on for a third of maybe only 5 of these live post-game reactions. Like Game 1, wasn't as close as the final score to indicate, and the final score was not close. So, good first half, entertaining first half, 5-point game with the break. Kind of saw Denver pull away in the third. It was 82-68, I think, from memory after 3, and it really never even got that close again. Denver is now 1-2 in fourth quarters in the series, but they're up 2-1. When you look at the final scores, that's the most important thing. I love the sound bites in the coaching huddles, and one of the ones from Coach Malone on Denver between the third and fourth quarter was, we've lost both of the fourth quarters to this point. Let's go out and win one. And he got his wish. They won the fourth by a point tonight. Not that it mattered at all. Denver cruising late, similar to Game 1 that we saw. And yeah, here we go. 3 games in, Denver's taking 2 of them. I think Miami's stealing a game. I don't think a lot of people thought was likely, but to their credit, they did it. But now Denver has seized the home court right back. So here we are.
So, first of all, we're going to look back at this if Denver wins this series in 5 or 6, and we're going to be like, they won how many fourth quarters? And it might be 1.
Right.
And we're going to be
it really might be 1. Yeah.
Weird. I had this whole thing prepared, and I'm just going to lead with something that just needs to be said. And again, for 2 games in a row now, I mentioned to you before we started that, all these first half notes that really didn't matter because the second half was irrelevant. Do not care what the final score says. But sometimes I think we as evaluators, as basketball people, as media people, as consumers of TV and radio and podcasts, I think we overcomplicate things sometimes in the world of sports. When you shoot under 40% from the field and under 35% from 3, you're going to lose a basketball game probably. And I hate to even just be the guy to be like, cool, we're 3 minutes in, and be like, well, we could end the live right now and be like, Miami didn't make their shots. But let's not overcomplicate this. Miami lost the game because they just didn't make their shots. Now, I have detailed notes about how the defense was affected and all that stuff, right? And we'll get into that. But sometimes I think we just need to stop overcomplicating stuff, and people are going to try to I'm going to get 3 texts tomorrow from 3 different people about some of the things that this or that needs to happen or do to change the effect of the game. And I'm like, no, there was nothing that was going to change the outcome of this game. They just could not make their shots. And this team is so I cannot believe they've gotten 3 rounds out of this, but the way they make their shots or miss their shots, it blows my mind. There's ridiculous stats to back it up. You've already mentioned the fourth quarter point differential. They're before this game, they were plus 90 in the playoffs.
Now 89. It's just as misleading. Yeah.
7 double-digit comebacks in the 2023 playoffs. No other team had more than 2. And then they have 28 wins, regular season and playoffs, of 5 or fewer. So they're just a corpse that they're like a zombie corpse that can literally just as long as they can just get one bite in near the neck, then you're done. But if you can stay within a shotgun barrel's length away from them, I'm giving all these zombie references here. It's just I don't know, man. This team frustrates me beyond belief, and I'm not saying I'm rooting for Denver, but I'm rooting for Denver, and it's just this is stupid, and I'm not shocked at this game. This series might end in 5.
Yeah, this is another tough night for Bucks and Celtics fans, honestly, Knicks fans even, to where you're thinking, we lost to this team at home how many times? Really? But again, to your point about this series maybe being shorter than Adam Silver and his official henchman would like, Denver is the better team. Denver was seen as the best team. I know you were on record in October saying Denver comes out of the West. I had them pre-playoffs and had alluded to it throughout the later stages of the season. So, it might not feel like it should feel like this is this likely, but it's hard to be shocked by this Denver team, especially when you're looking at games where they played well. I think the only really shocking thing from Denver so far has been things like the bad turnovers and whatever else led to the game 2 loss at home, the building they had played really well in. And, I mentioned it after game 2, we've seen a really different Denver team, even within this playoffs. They lost 2 games in Phoenix to let that series get back to 2-2, and then we saw them sweep the Lakers in Western Conference Finals. So I think that this version of Denver showing up game 1 in Miami, game 3 in the series to, again, take home court back, to regain the series lead and all these things, to where game 4, it's not a can lose. For Miami, it's obviously a must win, but Denver's not just going to be like, okay, I got our Miami game. We'll go back to Denver. Doesn't matter what the series score is, because we know we have 2 more games in Denver. They're not going to want to play that second game in Denver, a game 7, because as Boston found out, anything can happen in a game 7, even in your own building, against this zombie Miami team. That if Jimmy Butler decides to wreak havoc and make your franchise an embarrassment, this is going to happen in front of tens of millions of people. So I think that Denver is going to keep that same level of urgency. That that's kind of a thing where every finals game is a must win. You could see, and we've seen it in the playoffs outside of the finals, teams get up in series, take their foot off the gas. Think of every Doc Rivers team ever, including this year, up 3-2, ended up costing him his job. And so, I was really impressed by Denver, how they started. Early Bam again, kind of keeping Miami there. It was Jokic and Murray from the start for Denver. I think they scored or assisted on 40 of their first 45 points.
That's exactly right. I had written down also. Yep.
That 2-man game really was effective early. And they really, Aaron Gordon defensively was very, very good. Picked up some fouls in the first half that kind of lessened his role as the game wore on. But as the game wore on, the second half especially, Jimmy could get his, and it really didn't matter. And we saw it tonight because Jimmy had, 24, I think, 28?
28, 4, and 2. That's why I love to scroll it. It's a constant reminder. I can always I can always cheat and be like, it's right. Wait for it. It's right. It just finally gets to it eventually. I will say this, there's some stuff about this, the Nuggets have this championship DNA, and what I mean by that is sometimes you just see teams and the way they handle things, and like you said, there's this urgency they'll have, they're not going to come out in game 4, and they're not this punk team, punk attitude in your face kind of team, but you can also tell when a team is just they are locked in on winning a championship, and even if they lose, there's teams that have done it before, but you can't tell me in 2011 when Dirk, and I'm not comparing it with 2 European, white guys, but you can't tell me that Dirk, when after game 2, when he hit that ridiculous fadeaway in Miami or whatever it was in game 3, whichever game was in Miami, before they went back to their location, when he hit that fadeaway in the deep corner, I'll never forget it. I was just that was the moment where I was this team, if they can do this in this building, and just you see these switches get flipped, right? People talk about all the time, players can't flip, switch flips here. But obviously people like LeBron probably can, but there's just teams sometimes that just have a mojo to them, and Denver has it. And for me to be rash and say they're just bold with some of the decision making, Miami did it a couple times. I think I talked about it a little bit with you in game 2. I was they do just random things to throw the game off. They'll just do here's the zone for 6 minutes. Here's, you think I'm going to do this? I'm going to call the timeout now instead. Just the little things that Spoelstra does. The only real small adjustment was they doubled Murray at the end of the first half after he already had 20+. So it's I get the little things, but Denver was doing the more of the little things that I think is going to win them this series long term. Denver's pushing the pace more early, which was something that I was hesitant that they would do or be willing to lean into. They always try to get somebody going early. They got Gordon early in game 1. Jokic, unfortunately, had to be the guy going early in game 2, scoring-wise. Murray was in this one. Jokic's defense on Butler, driving to the rim. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Butler's injured, but I just don't. I don't know. I know 28, 4, and 2. That's probably the quietest 28, 4, and 2 he's ever put up in his career, and it's confusing.
Especially I know playoffs.
Playoffs or just in general in a moment like this. But long-winded to say Denver's doing the little things and making the adjustments that I think are making a difference right now, and Miami's not. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a coaching thing. I'm saying that's necessarily just the team as a whole is making the right choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think, speaking of little things, Michael Porter Jr. has had a shooting performance to forget for 3 games now consecutively in this series. But the things he does on defense, fighting around screens, going after tip balls, using his height to his advantage, which positionally is like, 110th percentile and just in general makes him an asset on the glass when there's effort put there, and there clearly was. I'm not sure what his last line ended up at. I know the shooting numbers weren't good, but it was good to watch him and easily thinking, we're up 9, 10, 11 points. The shot's still not there. I could just, run up and down the court for 15 more minutes, call it a night, be a little bit less sore tomorrow. But he was really trying to make his impact known. And it's just encouraging to see that, he's seeing the stars in Murray and Jokic carry the scoring load, which kind of takes pressure off him to find that shot immediately and gives him a chance to impact the game in other ways. And I thought he did a really good job of that, even though, again, his shooting is just not there. If this Denver team had more holes in its roster, they'd be in a lot more trouble. But, I mean, Christian Brown off the bench kind of made up for that tonight. They usually do it by committee. Bruce Brown had 15 in one of the first 2 games, I believe, the win in game 1. And so they're getting production in all the right spots, which is ironically kind of what got Miami here as far as bench scoring in bunches and, one guy kind of being the bench guy scoring wise and impacting game in other ways. Like they said, Brown had 3 steals in game 2, even in a loss. That's really encouraging to see, especially from a rookie. I think it's great to see this Denver team as a whole. You would never guess it's their first NBA Finals as a franchise, just how poised they've been and the way they go about these games, bouncing back from a home loss, really, really encouraging tonight. And then obviously heaping more praise on the coaching. Christian Brown is ready for the stage. He's won a championship at Kansas. I think they showed a graphic tonight, 3-time champion in high school. So, the championship setting, not new to him, but obviously the magnitude ratchets up by an exponential amount as you progress through basketball and the various levels of it. And there's no bigger stage in the NBA Finals. So it was great to see him tonight. I think I made a note when he had 15 points, I think the Heat bench had 15. So I mean, not only is he neutralizing any kind of Jimmy spurt, Bam mid range, whatever Miami was doing to stay within a dozen, he was effectively outplaying the Heat's entire bench.
Yeah, and a testament to Christian Brown and the whole bench because, when you're able to neutralize Jimmy Butler, whether that's your star defender, say it's, some team's best defender like a Kawhi Leonard and able to, a star type player. But, if Christian Brown, Bruce Brown are going to be the guys that are, preventing these Jimmy Butler type of play. And I say preventing, I want people to take this out of context. 28-4-2 is not something not to write home about. But, it was the least bit impactful tonight because of how their offense couldn't get going. The best thing that the Heat offense could get was that Bam mid-range, right? It's either a DHO or a mid-range. Right. And, they were stifling everything that they could. And I think it speaks back to Denver. And I don't want Heat fans to attack me, but, I'm more impressed with everything I saw from Denver tonight, which is why I'm talking about them the most, right? They're switching on everything. They literally switched everything in the first half, and it's a testament to why the score ended up being what it was. Or again, I don't want the 109-94 to be misleading, but this game wasn't close, and Denver was really controlling all those little efforts like we talked about with the bench and some of the adjustment stuff. I think Gordon getting out in transition, you mentioned his defense earlier. I do think that the rebound and push in transition is going to make Jokic not have to do that. And I've had people text me and be like, and I trust their opinion, but it's hey, the thing they need to do is have Jokic run the floor on transition on a rebound. And I'm that's just not, I just wholeheartedly disagree. He needs to be a passer in the post. He doesn't need to be Magic Johnson, even though I alluded to that play in game 2 where he literally was Magic Johnson. He grabbed a rebound, ran it, got bumped on the offside, and then made the play up, right? But he needs to be a guy that they're actively facilitating through in the half court, and that's what he did. He had 20 rebounds and 10 assists tonight. He was in the right places, right time. 32 points just speaks to the volume of the butt kicking. I'm trying to figure out the best way to land that plane softly, but I think they just all around they just beat the crap out of them. And sometimes, again, back to the simple comment, people are going to be like, well, Miami didn't make their shots, and I said that, I live with that. But Denver's defense is the reason they didn't make the shots tonight. That was a big eye-opening thing for me.
Yeah, and when you don't make your shots, the only thing that can really save you is getting those shots back, offensive glass, winning in the paint.
Yep.
60-34 Denver points in the paint, 58-33 on the glass, 13-9 Nuggets on the offensive boards. So that's a recipe to lose by 15 at home. And the stage is really irrelevant when you kind of put those numbers up and you look at they shot 37% in addition to all those startling statistics. So like we said, it was not this close. It was 14 points after 3. It got up in the low 20s, little Miami run with, empty chairs looking on. And it's good to see the team like you not give up on the stage. And that's a testament to Spo and the Heat culture and everything like that. But when Udonis Haslem is playing NBA Finals minutes, your night has not gone well. And he's been there 20 years. He's a legend. I'm glad to see him on the court. It's a good story. But again, you would like to see him coaching from the bench rather than playing. And he's deserved the shot he got to go out and get some minutes in for what he brings to this team off the court. But yeah, I mean, I wrote down 93-72 ... curtains, and that was pretty much it. And of course, Miami trying to prove me wrong immediately. Went on a quick 7-0 run, but Jamal Murray, like he did 4 or 5 times, that's the most common note I had was Heat mini run. Jamal Murray silences it, and that was it. So they prevented the big run. That lead jumped up to 11 very quickly in the third quarter, and we never really truly looked back from there.
Yeah, the Murray thing is interesting. It speaks to just the kind of player he's been consistently. I know that I alluded to the injury and some of the stuff being forgotten, right? And that this is just – I'm glad he's doing it on the biggest stage against Butler. Honestly, at this point, I don't think it's odd take. I think he's outplaying Butler, even with the game 2
I'd agree.
Sore spot. And that had to have mattered coming into this series, and it clearly is now. We wouldn't be, a post-game podcast if we weren't previewing at least game 4, kind of talking about what could change. And the way I wanted to spur the conversation that I thought was interesting, and I'm not shocked by this, but I'm more so like, I think it's an adjustment. This is, I guess, my answer, and we'll go with it, but and see what we think. But Miami played more zone in the entire playoffs than any other team, all other teams combined, right? I don't think we see the zone again. I think we've learned from it, and I think that's a big adjustment. And the problem is I don't think that they're the type of team that's going to be able to man up. I really just don't, and I think that's why they went to the zone. I think I'm realizing they used it as a game toy, a game tool here to kind of play with. But it's 2-1. But this series very easily could be 3-1 or 3-0, and it's just I think we're overrating how close game 2 was, or underrating, I guess. But I think the zone was just something they did to kind of toy with Denver and put them, try to have that as an advantage in some spots. But I just don't. I think we see it completely get abandoned, and they're going to figure out a way. They're going to have to start. I know you mentioned the Michael Porter Jr. minutes, but they're getting production to make up for that. And Michael Porter Jr. has a good game the rest of this series. The series is over. It's just going to be one of those things that swings the entire rest of the series.
Right, yeah, and you can go back and forth on is Michael Porter or Aaron Gordon the third guy. I would lean Michael Porter, and if you bring up his stats against his averages, when he tends to do, you lost 2 or 3 of those games. It could be much, much worse. It could be 3-0 like you mentioned. So I just think, yeah, and as far as looking ahead to game 4, at what point, if you're in Miami, do you just say, you've got 6 fouls, go use 4 of them in 2 minutes? I mean, they've got to do something. The zone you mentioned, when Jokic can stand in the middle of the zone and he's towering over everybody except for, Cody Zeller, I think you've got problems. Kevin Love tried his best. We saw what that looked like. Just not going to do it. And Jokic is too good a passer when he gets in a crease in that zone. He's turning, looking for guys, and you've got 3 guys looking up, staring at him. With the way Denver shoots outside of Michael Porter Jr., unfortunately, you're going to have a lot of problems. Murray was very, very active in the paint. I wouldn't be surprised if most of his, I believe, 32 were in the paint tonight. He just got everything he wanted, and that was really from the opening tip-off. They asserted dominance in the paint, and they really never gave it back, and that's indicative of how vast these stats are as far as the glass and paint scoring and all these different things. Neither team early was really depending on the 3-point shot. I think Bruce Brown hit Denver's first 3 minutes into the second quarter, and they still held a slim lead. So it was really, we're going to beat you inside. There's nothing you can do about it. And you can go shoot 35 threes, but when you make 11 of them, that's not going to offset that. You'd need closer to 20, honestly, to really have a fighting chance of overcoming a deficit like that. I don't think it's lack of physicality. I think it's just when you have guys like Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon, they're just crashing glass if they're on the court at the same time. Miami, outside of Bam, doesn't really have the bodies, honestly. And Bam can only do so much. I think he's played very, very well, and it's going to get lost in how lopsided this series may be. But I think for Miami to really put all the rebounding responsibility on essentially one guy, I think Bam had like 17 rebounds tonight, which no one's going to remember. Kind of similar to Jimmy's 28, 4 and 2. It's a valiant effort. You're getting the most out of him, I think. He's not the most efficient scorer, especially when you stack it up next to Jokic, who had 30 on like 18 shots tonight. You're just not going to get that from Bam. And so I think, could Jimmy play better? Absolutely. Could Bam play better? Maybe a little bit. Is the combination of those two things going to get you 3 games? I don't think so. So then you're really depending on guys coming out of, I don't say the woodwork because they deserve more credit for that, but you need a Strus game, a Vincent game. Hero, will he play? Will he not? Duncan Robinson played
Caleb Martin,
sparingly
like the
tonight.
guy that literally
Right,
Boston
yeah.
fans are at home like screaming profusely in Boston accents. Like,
Yeah.
where was this? Where was this last series? This could be Boston, Denver, which probably
Right.
was
The guy who
5 or
got
4.
4 of 9 Eastern Conference Finals MVP votes.
Yeah. And here we
Has really been the dictionary definition of a non-factor to this point. So I think, a lot of things have to go right for Miami to win games, but even that almost isn't enough because we saw in game 2, it took more of things going wrong for Denver to allow Miami to take a game.
And a misstep back from one of the best players in the playoffs. Like, it
Right. That me and you both thought was not even going to touch the rim. So I think, I absolutely agree.
So I want to save room for some Chris Paul stuff, and I got one more thing we got to do. So really quick, who wins game 4?
I think Denver wins game 4, and I hate it because, I enjoy the NBA Finals, I enjoy the NBA, and I enjoy doing these, and I think that would mean we have one more of those left. But I'm going to hope for a closer game. I really do expect a response from Miami. We've kind of seen the zigzag method prove true through 3 games. These two teams, you can say what you want about them. Good for Denver, bad for Denver, bad for Miami. But they're here. They've both won a game. Both teams have won a road game now. So, I don't think 2-2 is out of the realm of possibility, but so many things have to change for that outcome to change. Now, the score may be closer. It might be, 104-100 on was it Friday, Saturday?
Yeah, we're getting a Friday. We're getting a 2 box now,
okay.
or 2 gap now for the first time ever. So that'll be weird.
So as a basketball fan, I would like to see a closer game, but I'm going to take Denver to go.
I've reached the point where like I would be happy with either result. Like I would be happy with 5 and be like, damn, I didn't get much content out of that, right? 2 missed games or whatever. But it's like at the same time, like I'm just so ready for like to just set the orange ball down for a few days. Like it's just been a long year. This is like a small therapy session, but like I really do. I agree with you. I think I went down the same thought process path where it was like I wouldn't be shocked if it was 106 to. Actually, what am I saying? That would not be the score. Like, it might be 99 to 82 or 99 to 94 or whatever. Like something stupid like that, where Miami like puts up a significant fight. And I think ultimately, Denver. Sometimes I mentioned earlier, kind of alluded to it, but like sometimes when you have the momentum, it isn't just because like 2-1. It sounds like it's a lot closer than it is, and like it is. Miami could win game 4, and I sound like an idiot 2-2. But at the same time, it's that championship mentality that like. People swear up and down that the Heat have, and I just don't know. I just can't sit here and tell you that I would look back on this NBA season as an 8 seed Miami Heat win, and like I wouldn't feel good about it. I'd be like Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, like I would feel better being like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray led the Denver Nuggets to an NBA title. That just sounds better, and sometimes like that is what it is, and the momentum's just in their favor, whether it's a Game 3 win or not. I think I would have said that after Game 2. Denver still is just the better team right now, and there's no reason I should be denying that. I ultimately do think it will be 3-1 heading back to Denver. What I wanted to leave time for really fast as we transition to Chris Paul is the Chipotle counter. I added this at the last second, and on YouTube I'll be editing something on the screen. that I had the little gift card up for. I'll throw the challenge out there for those that are new watching this live or later. If you can send one of us, and I'll put the Twitters back on the screen. If you could send one of us or at 2-pointers a screenshot of you actually getting a code from the texting in the every 3-pointer, you text a code, whatever. If you can actually send proof of that, I will send a $10 Chipotle gift card in your email. I have not seen proof of it anywhere, publicly or privately. So that's why the challenge is still out there. Our Chipotle counter is up to, after a whopping, I believe you said 14 threes in this game. For those that are confused on the math at home, wondering what the heck we're talking about, Chipotle is doing a 3-point contest where every 3-pointer made in the series, someone from Chipotle is live tweeting the game, and they will send out a code. First 300 people, I believe, first 300 people to get that code, text it in, will get a free, we're going to call it a $9 coupon entree, because that's what I did for the math in North Carolina. So long story short, it is 300 burritos times $9 for every, 300. I'm already messed up. 14 threes times 300 burritos times $9 for those burritos that were given out. This game we gave out a whopping 43,000. No, yeah, it went up. It was 37 last time. We gave up $43,200 in Chipotle burritos, and the series total after 3 entire NBA Finals games is only $175,500. That is gross, and again, I would love to see them I would love to see Chipotle's stock price after a Warriors finals. I would just love to see it was at $100 and now it's at $80 because guys are pissed because they're losing money. So would love to see that. But yeah, we've reached the point where Chipotle might not give away $250,000, and they might not even get to $250,000 in giveaways. So we were thinking $500,000. Yeah, last 3 days ago.
Over $500,000 bet. They might have to play 11 games to get there. So I'm not too confident in that anymore.
All right, so let's get to something I did not expect to get to today. I'll be transparent with you.
No, absolutely not.
And obviously, we coming up on the 30-minute mark, so we'll spend about 5-ish minutes on this. I don't think it will take that long, maybe. But for those that are not are just out of the loop and not realizing what's going on, Chris Paul was announced by Chris Haynes, and we'll get to that in a second, that he was waived. And then he wasn't because they're renegotiating a contract. And now officially, as of 9:30, apparently he is not waived. So now I'm confused.
Yes.
And I was ready to talk through the team scenarios. I had told you about a pod I did where I was like, Boston, that would be a great fit for Boston. Let Derek White play a ton throughout the year. Let some young guys play. Let Marcus Smart get his mistakes out in the regular season, and then be like, oh, here's Chris Paul, who's only played 44 games in the playoffs, and that would be the guy that gets him over the top. Now that's all out the window. We just have to address the fact of what happened. It was announced at 3 p.m. by Chris Haynes that he was waived, which red flag immediately. I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell? What is going on? Things are happening. Right. And then Brian Windhorst gets on with Zach Lowe and Woj. I believe they were in Miami for this show, and they were basically they're talking, having their normal conversation, and there's Windhorst doing his normal Windhorst thing, and he starts talking, and he's alluding to the contract buyout situation. So, and then again, a bunch of Phoenix beats are basically saying that he has not been waived. So I am confused. Where's your head at with Chris Paul, and is this ultimately what's the best scenario out of this after everything that happened today? What's the best solution that comes out of this?
I mean, if you're the Suns, I don't think eating $13 million plus in dead cap is the solution. So as unpredictable as Matt Stachula has been in his brief tenure as owner of the Suns, I think that there are far better ways to facilitate a Chris Paul exit than, again, just paying a guy $13 million against your cap sheet, which does not look fantastic at the moment. And they have things to address on that roster, as a lot of their depth is now residing in Brooklyn. So I think that a trade, maybe the contract is what it is. It's not going to change. They could waive him, re-sign him, an avenue that I guess I would prefer for Chris Paul. I think he's meant to be in Phoenix right now. I think Kevin Durant wants him back, which may have spurred the, whatever you want to call it today, to where they maybe told Kevin, hey, we're thinking about going this route. All of a sudden, Kevin Durant learns from Chris Haynes, they're going this route. And then something may have happened behind the scenes. I don't think we'll ever really get the whole story about that. It's just that murky, even with people as in touch as Chris Haynes and Woj and Shams and people like that. Sometimes they get scoops that are legitimate, but situations can change in a matter of minutes, and I guess in this case, all afternoon today. So I think ultimately they figured out a way to keep him there just because that dead cap hit, they've already got a massive task ahead of them of making this team into a true contender rather than a flawed one, which is what they were despite trading for Kevin Durant. That freak ankle injury and warm-ups really threw a wrench in things as well. So I think that, Kevin Durant, no stranger to missing games on a self-constructed super team, but I think that if they want to avoid the same fate the Nets had trying to, wheel and deal for a title with Kevin Durant, they're going to have to adjust the roster. And I think Chris Paul is about as good as they can do. Maybe not for the price, but I mean, in a trade, I don't know who you bring back. I think Ayton's a much better trade candidate if you're going to try and bring pieces back that can immediately contribute to a team that has a real chance at a title. The team they faced a couple times, Dallas, they're going to implode. They have Kyrie Irving on the team, so you can kind of cross them off. Whether or not, I think, he stays, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think Kyrie even knows at this point. But, yeah, so I think for both the Suns and Chris, I think the best avenue forward is for him to remain a Sun. Now, if he's waived and re-signed, maybe you do some cap gymnastics, things like that. Waive and stretch, you're just kicking the can down the road. And from experience, the Thunder are now no longer paying Kyle Singler. That's how long these things can jag on for. So I think it's in their best interest to have Chris Paul on the cap sheet and on the floor. I would like to see Chris Paul win a championship in my lifetime. I think his best chance to do that is in Phoenix. So, yeah, I think right now I do think he does remain in Phoenix.
So that this show does not age poorly within 48 hours or longer, here's the myriad of emotions or not emotions. What am I saying? I'm not a Chris Paul fan. I mean, I am. I'm not a Chris Paul like super fan, and I'm not a Suns fan. So there was no emotions here. It was just more of NBA drama reaction. But here's the myriad of thought processes I went through in a span of 8 hours. I went from, oh my God, Chris Paul just got bought out. What the blank is going on? To there's got to be within an hour to let's say 5 o'clock, right? There's got to be a draft night trade coming. This is it. This is where we see a change. We see a draft night trade, yada, 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 right? Like we see some kind of move there's an ulterior motive here with Ayton. And I don't know how much I lost you there for a second, but I was basically like, there's a draft night trade. I was like, oh my God, like within 2 hours, I'm like, that's it. Like there's a draft night trade coming. There's an ulterior motive for this. And then I was like, you mentioned earlier the Ayton contract. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, that contract's just as gross, if not worse or grosser. So I was like, okay, that's not working out. And then I went to a point where I was like, okay, well, if it is a buyout, let's just assume it is. Then I'm like thinking through all the possibilities. And then for a sliver of 30 minutes, I was like, wait a minute. Like, is David Stern about to roll over in his grave because Chris Paul is going to sign a minimum contract to play with LeBron in Los Angeles? Yeah, probably. That was all in a span of like 4.5 hours. And then to fast forward to like right in the middle of the finals, basically, where we're like, hey, by the way, it might not be true.
Right.
Excuse me? You're telling me that 3 completely plugged in insiders have no like recollection that this might not be true?
Which is extremely rare.
Yeah. Something's off here. And I'm just, again, like, so it doesn't age poorly. I agree with you. I think ultimately this might have just been something that came out by accident, maybe. I don't even want to say that because it sounds stupid in today's NBA and today's media landscape. But, like, I should not have been going through these I should not be having purple and gold flashbacks with Chris Paul in the middle of June. Like, I shouldn't be doing that. This is not something that should be happening. And like, there's a myriad of possibilities, and people are starting to put out pieces about D'Angelo Russell and Chris Paul would work so well together because D'Lo could do this in the regular season. And I'm like, I'm good. Like, I think it's honestly, I think I'd be just as happy if he won it in Phoenix because ultimately that was where he was. They built the team around him. It was very clear that was the guy that helped get them over the edge from Devin Booker, having that ultimate, finals run there. But Chris Paul was a huge reason for it, if not the biggest reason. So, I don't know. I think it's just a whirlwind of 12 hours, and like someone's getting old yellered, like a source is getting taken out behind something. Like, right, like Chris Haynes, I don't think he'll trust anybody ever again. Like, I just don't. And supposedly him and Chris and him and a couple other guys are pretty tight. So I'm just confused. That was really long, but like I'm confused and I'm annoyed because like same thing with like the Jaws stuff. Like why now?
I was about to say we've had
now?
two of these three NBA Finals games upstaged by massive.
Well, three technically
was
because of
out of the
Kyrie.
clouds.
If you count Kyrie's crap with the
right,
LeBron
yeah.
thing, I guess that's
Honestly,
three.
yeah.
That wasn't technically during.
That might be a manufactured talking point situation, but yeah, no. Honestly, we've had some point guard rumor mills white hot as we enter into the night of NBA Finals game. So that's like the silver media machine. Who knows? I don't know, but it gives us a good extra thing to talk about on these. So I'm grateful for it, at least from that perspective. Although thankfully we avoided Kyrie last time. So
yeah, I didn't want to bring it up. I just more so addressing the fact that it did happen, since people are watching this live and they'll be watching it later. Like, wait a minute, you didn't talk about LeBron and Kyrie? Well, no, because it's ridiculous. Have you looked that it would literally be less than $1 million under their total cap for three guys? Like,
right?
Excuse me. Like, the math isn't math in here, right? Unless they want five Theo Pinsons out there with them. Otherwise, like, that's just not. Like, they're not going to win a title. Luka, LeBron, and Kyrie, and five Theo Pinsons. Like, it's just not going to happen. I'm sorry.
And one basketball.
That too. I really don't have anything else. I know that there's a bunch of draft stuff circulating. I've got a couple things I'm going out and vetting personally because I can't fathom them being true, and I'm just going to not say them out loud publicly because I'm not ready to go there yet. A couple of things happened in college basketball that were crazy, a lot of transfer portal stuff, and just a lot of fun stuff. So all of it will be covered here on this podcast in the next coming weeks. The NBA draft is T-minus, I can't do quick math. Is that 14 days from tomorrow? What is that? 8? Nope. 17 days.
22nd, 23rd?
Yeah, so 17 days, I think, if I got that right. A while from now, but it'll also be here before we know it. Free agency will follow after that. My big board will be out within a few hours after this podcast goes out tomorrow morning, so that'll be really fun. Top 75. There's some cool little surprises and nuggets in there that I spent way too long on, so please, house-enterprise.com. It'll be in the description as well. You'll be able to go read that, check that out, argue with me in the comments and on Reddit, because it's definitely going on Reddit, because Reddit people are mean. That's all I had. I wanted to get a plug away. I know SeatGeek's been rolling at the bottom of the screen for the last 8 minutes, and I don't like to plug at the end of these live shows. So you plug away. Subscribe to the 1009 podcast below. Everything for you is all linked there. Thanks for coming on. Plug away.
Yeah, so I've got a podcast with my college roommates. We all worked for the Clemson football team during our time at Clemson. So we're football dominated, but in months like these, times like this, where there's not a lot of football things going on, we're into baseball. Basketball, I watch a lot more basketball than they do, which is why I'm grateful for the outlet that is the 2 Pointers podcast, so I can actually get my thoughts out after sitting down and watching a full game, because I know both of them went to sleep probably an hour and a half ago. So always grateful to come on here, actually make use of some notes I made and talking points that have faded away. We do release weekly. Probably going to take this week off just due to scheduling, and we're mourning Clemson's baseball team playing like a Doc Rivers coach basketball team in the postseason. So if any basketball fans don't watch baseball, just imagine that, but on a baseball field. Very painful. Watched the season end in person, was not ideal, but it's almost football season, which is good news for us because we watch a lot more football than anything else, and also that's really Clemson's main thing right now. So a lot of general sports stuff. We might shoot a blog out on the Live PGA, whatever you want to call that. But yeah, just weekly time killer, commute eater type deal. Runs about an hour, and if you guys wander over there, we would appreciate it greatly.
Yeah, I'm still processing this Live thing because, like, literally nobody we know of our generation has ever, like, even our parents, like, didn't really witness the NBA-ABA merger because they were probably in their, early teen days or less, and there was an intended purpose with that ABA-NBA merger, and then the NFL, AFL, there was an intended purpose with that. So, like, and clearly there's an intended purpose with the PGA. This is not a PGA podcast, but, like, I follow golf more than I think people would. I think people on Twitter who have been following me for a long time would be shocked how much I actually do follow golf. So it's more of just like a thanks for throwing that out there, because it is kind of a hot button topic right now. It's probably one of the biggest things because it literally crosses the path of billion-dollar golf industry and billion-dollar U.S. government antitrust law issues. So it crosses all kinds of borders. And, a lot of big things are happening in North Carolina. Just, the gambleize. This is what we get for the podcast at midnight. The legalized gambling. It will be on the governor's desk sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours. So I will be sending you FanDuel prop bets with sad faces here in the next 48 hours, hopefully. But it'll be really cool. I'm excited for to see that come to fruition finally. So. Appreciate it. I'm tired. I'm gonna go get this podcast out so I can just post all the big board stuff and get to writing. I've got some cool things coming here in the next couple of weeks. Writing's not gonna write itself. So,
right.
This has been the 2 Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. Thank you to everybody watching live on YouTube and Twitter, as well as in the future. If you're watching this and you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, 5-star review, and a rating would be greatly appreciated. Follow 2 Pointers. Everything is on the screen or in the link in the description below for both of us. On behalf of Grayson, this has been the 2 Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and I'm exhausted.